Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. We have just a moment here, maybe one more minute to give others some time to join the line, and we are going to get started. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Girl Chat. We have a few folks that are getting in on the line here, but we're going to go ahead and make a start. We'll try to admit them as they come in. I want to welcome everyone and thank you so much for joining. This is our Inner Peace Girl Chat, and from time to time, we just gather here to have discussions about things that are going on, questions that have come up, in terms of a trend for our group. And this just gives us an opportunity to address those questions and make sure that everyone is comfortable where you are in your journey into your firearms. So this morning, we are going to talk about designing an effective EDC system, and I'm really excited to have all of you on the line. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping things. We do keep the line muted so that we basically get rid of any excess noise as much as possible. So if you do have a question or a comment, please do take yourself off of mute so that we can hear you. Also, keep in mind that everything we discuss today is merely a conversation for informational purposes. So this session is not to be misconstrued with formal training or certification of any type. We should also be sure you understand that it is not legal advice. I am not an attorney. I am speaking this morning from my own training, my own personal experiences, and of course, we hope that you all will share from yours as well. So once again, this is not a formal course. This does not certify you in any way. This is for informational purposes only, and again, not to be interpreted as legal advice or information. So with that, let's go ahead and jump in. We're talking about everyday carry. And this is an area where, ladies, we have lots of questions and lots of corrections as well when we get on the range and we observe certain things. Some of you are probably tired of me saying, hey, you need to change this and consider that. But it's very, very important. For the most part, women, when asked, why are you in this 2A journey? Why are you even learning about firearms? One of the very first things that we tend to say as ladies is, hey, I want to defend myself. I want to defend my loved ones. And the fact of the matter is that if we're going to do that, we need to do it appropriately. Otherwise, it's not going to be effective. And the last thing you want to do is become a victim with a firearm that you hand over to the person who is trying to cause you harm or danger. So it's very, very important that we understand how to put together a proper and appropriate everyday carry system, and then also how to use it. When should we practice? What types of things should be considered? And so we're going to go over that today. So again, I invite you to jump in with your questions and your comments as we go. I'll try to make pause for that as well. The things we're going to talk about today. What is an EDC system? When we talk about everyday carry, what exactly does that mean? And what is the purpose of having an everyday carry system? We'll talk about that. We're also going to discuss a little bit about handgun selection. So, there are many different firearms out there. How do you pick the right one to carry to potentially save your life or that of a loved one? We're going to touch on some things to consider there. We're also going to talk a little bit about a secondary EDC and a tertiary EDC, which are terms that some people are not as familiar with, but things we really do want to consider, again, to round out this entire topic of self-defense. And then we'll close out with any final questions that you all might have, or other topics that perhaps we haven't touched on that you would like for us to touch on. So first and foremost, let's start right at the very beginning, right? When we hear that term or that acronym EDC, we are referring to everyday carry. That's what EDC stands for. And basically, our EDC system should be a collection of the tools and the devices that we carry on a daily basis to make sure that we stay safe and healthy. Now, the key here is daily basis. If you're going to carry a handgun, especially, you must do it every day. Now, I understand that that can be intimidating at first. And with a lot of ladies, as we're coaching them, people say, I'm just not quite there to where I can carry a gun on my hip all day. That's okay. You can work your way up. There are staged efforts that you can take in order to get to a place where you are comfortable carrying on an everyday basis. But ultimately, let us be very clear. Ultimately, the goal is for you to carry every single day. Not only are you carrying that firearm every single day, but you are carrying it ready to go every single day. That means locked and clocked, or I can't even talk, cocked and locked. That means ready to go, one in the chamber. If someone approaches you with a threat, you've got to be ready to answer that threat immediately, within less than a second. So we have to get to the mindset that even though we might have to stage ourselves in adopting this lifestyle and this culture, ultimately the goal is for you to carry that firearm every single day, locked and cocked, or with a round in the chamber, depending on what type of firearm you are carrying. Very, very important. Ultimately, that EDC system, your firearm and everything surrounded, everything that we're going to talk about here this morning, the whole purpose is to, again, guarantee your safety on a day-to-day basis. It's going to include at least your handgun, your identification, some cash, and extra ammunition, right? At the end of the day, a full gun is a happy gun. You do not want your firearm to run empty. And the fact of the matter is that if there is a gunfight, God forbid, you don't know how many rounds are going to be required. Now, that being said, we do have some statistics out there. We have, quite a bit of research that says for the most part, it's going to be a close encounter. So you're talking about potentially 3 to 5 feet, 3 to 5 rounds, and probably over in less than 3 seconds in most cases. But there are cases where that might be exceeded in terms of distance or even the number of rounds that are needed. So in general, you want to get accustomed to carrying a full firearm, however many rounds that might be for you, and at least some sort of backup. That backup is your choice. It may be another full magazine. It may be a backup firearm that carries another 5 or 6 rounds. Whatever your firearm will handle, you want to carry the maximum capacity plus a backup. That's going to be part of your EDC system. Why? Because we don't get to choose the threats that decide to choose us. So it's very important that you remain prepared. So again, we're not talking about fear, we're talking about preparation here. So every single day, your everyday carry system should include your firearm, your identification, the ammunition for that firearm, including a backup of some sort, whether that's a backup firearm or another magazine. And it should also include cash. Now, this is something we don't talk about a lot. You need to have cash on your person, right? Your everyday carry system should include that cash in case there is an emergency. That's something you want to build into your system and always have, in addition to your identification. Please do not get into the habit of carrying a loaded firearm without your identification. For those of you who are in the state of North Carolina, you know that is actually against the law. You are in violation if you have a loaded firearm and do not have on your person at the same time a picture ID as well as your actual concealed carry permit. So these are, again, things to consider. All of that in total is what we're referring to when we talk about your everyday carry system or your EDC. So let's back up just a moment and talk about how to choose some of the things that are involved in that particular system, mainly your handgun. So this is the first thing we're going to talk about. When you are choosing or selecting your carry firearm, your carry handgun, I want you to remember the acronym REAP. REAP. That's going to help you to make a good selection. Number one, that firearm must be reliable. In other words, you must have full confidence that it is going to go boom every time you pull the trigger. Now, there are some things that you need to consider in order to make sure that happens. One, the firearm itself needs to be reliable, meaning it needs to be a firearm that is tested and tried. So, for example, we know that Glocks, just to throw something out there, Glocks are very popular here because, honestly, a Glock is going to go boom. It doesn't matter which model it is. It doesn't matter in many cases whether it's clean or it's dirty. Unless user error is involved, a Glock just has the reputation of working. It is going to go boom. And as such, they are very popular handguns for many reasons, one of them being everyday carry. Now, in addition to that firearm, remember we just talked about ammunition. You need to make sure that your ammunition is also reliable. When we are carrying to defend ourselves, we're going to carry a different type of ammunition than what we use on the range. We're going to carry some sort of hollow point ammunition because it is designed to stop on impact. It is designed for our target to absorb all of the energy, and that is safer when we're talking about self and home defense. So that being said, I'm going to make sure that I test my carry ammunition as well in that same firearm to ensure that it is reliable. I am not wanting to see misfires. I don't want to experience any hang fires. I don't want to have all kinds of pistol malfunctions. I want to make sure that my pistol runs smoothly and economically with the ammunition that is chosen. That is number one on my list of considerations. There must be reliability. There's no point in carrying a gun if it's going to malfunction on you. So ladies, when you are at the range with absolutely no stress and all the time in the world to hit that target, right? If you are having issues with your firearm, you're not able to rack the slide, for some reason you're getting stovepipes, it's not going into battery, you're getting a lot of clicks and no bangs, that is a surefire sign that you need to consider two things. One, are you training enough? Is your technique appropriate? And then two, if you're checking those boxes off, maybe the firearm that you're practicing with is not reliable enough for you to carry on a daily basis. It's not a tool that could potentially save your life. Remember, these things, when they do happen, God forbid, happen very, very quickly. You will not have time. 3 seconds or less on average. You will not have time to work through a whole lot of extra. You have to have complete confidence in the firearm that you're carrying and the ammunition that you are feeding through it. Very, very important. The second thing we're going to consider, the E, stands for ergonomics or fit. Does the firearm fit my hand? And there's so many things that we want to consider here. I actually brought out my everyday carry, and I've cleared this, so I'm going to show you that it's clear. This is my EDC. I tend to carry a Kimber Micro 9, at least for the moment. I'm in the process of making a very emotional decision and potentially changing that. But for right now, this is my baby. I've been carrying this now for about 4 years, and I love my Kimber Micro 9. I'm going to just lock the slide open so that you can see, I'll show here on the camera, that my chamber is absolutely empty. I have nothing in the magazine well. You can see straight through there. Okay, so we are clear. When it comes to fit, there are a few things that you want to consider with your firearm. You want to make sure, one, that when your hand is on the firearm, that you are able to get a good master grip. So the web of my hand is all the way up into the tang of the gun or the back strap. There's no air or space. You should be able to easily and comfortably wrap all of those fingers around the firearm, and you should be able to easily reach the trigger without any strain, without compromising that grip. When it comes to your support hand, you should be able to get real estate here. I want as much skin to touch that firearm as possible, because the more friction I have, the more control I have. And if I look to the back of the firearm, you can see there my magazine well, but there are no other gaps. This gun is covered on all 4 corners. And that's what I want in terms of a good fit. You must be able to hold on to the firearm. Here's why. Again, we're talking about defensive shooting. So defensive shooting is different from marksmanship in that when I'm at the range and I'm shooting at an X, I have all the time in the world. I can get a perfect sight picture. I can concentrate on my stance, get a perfect grip, make sure my trigger manipulation is just right. Everything's beautiful, right? In a self-defense situation, that's not going to happen. You have adrenaline pumping through your system. You have seconds and only seconds to react. So you've got to be able to hold on to that firearm quickly so that you can take multiple shots. Taking multiple shots, if you're not holding on to the gun, those shots are going to start to spray and go all over the place. Now remember, you're responsible for every place that bullet lands. The destination of every bullet from your gun, you're responsible for, whether it was intended or not. So it's very important that you be able to fire rapid shots, at least 4 to 5 shots, in 4 to 5 seconds without going all over the place. Grip is going to play a major factor in whether or not you can do that. Also, your trigger control. So you want to make sure, again, that you can reach that trigger without strain and without compromising your grip. Those 2 things are going to be key when it comes to effective defensive shooting. Now that brings me to the next letter in our acronym, which is the A. A stands for accuracy. When you are choosing your firearm, you want to choose the largest and heaviest firearm that you can shoot accurately. Accuracy is key. If you are all over the place, that gun is not a gun that you should be carrying, at least not right now. Because again, even if you save your life or someone else's, you could potentially take another life that you're going to have to pay for. You got to be accurate and you've got to be on point with whatever you are carrying. It helps to have a larger firearm. It helps to have a heavier firearm because in general, they have less felt recoil, they're easier to handle, and therefore easier to shoot accurately as they are larger and heavier. That being said, I recognize that we're ladies and we don't want a cannon, right, on our bodies. But at the same time, consider this, ladies. I often hear, I can't carry a Glock 19. Yes, you can. Let's just be honest, ladies. If we can hide a baby for 4 months, 5 months, even if we haven't done it personally, we all know someone who has, right? We can hide a kitchen sink in a purse. We know how to conceal things. So where there's a will, there's a way, right? If we truly desire, we can carry a compact firearm. And a compact, again, is about the size of a Glock 19. That's a pretty standard compact size, or a commander size 1911. We can carry that without any problem. Now, my carry gun happens to be a micro, more along the size of a P365 or perhaps a Glock 43, but I had to train a lot in order to become proficient and efficient with that particular firearm. If I were not willing to put in that amount of training, I would be carrying a larger firearm for sure, probably a Glock 19 or something similar. It's okay to know where you are, but please carry responsibly, right? Do not start getting these little LCP 9s and so forth, and you know that you don't shoot them well. If you cannot fire at least 5 shots in 10 seconds, and that's a lot of time, at 5 yards onto a little index card, you don't need to be carrying that firearm yet. That is the type of accuracy that you must have. Why? Because again, you're gonna have to shoot, if you have to defend yourself, much more quickly than 10 seconds. And you're gonna have to be able to draw that firearm in the first place to get on target, right? And you're gonna have to make multiple shots without missing your target. Now, keep in mind that target will be moving. That target is not going to be a stationary piece of paper with a red dot in the middle. So all of those things considered, if you are struggling at 5 yards or so to take 5 shots in 10 seconds onto an index card, you really need to practice, absolutely, but also think about your firearm and your accuracy. The last letter in my acronym is power, P for power. Here I'm talking about caliber, right? You want to carry the largest caliber possible that you shoot well. As a minimum, I personally recommend 9mm. Most people are going to shoot 9mm. We do not use 22 ammunition for defense, not because the ammo is small, that has nothing to do with it. You could do some damage with a 22, but because it is what we call a rim fire round. It's because of the placement of the primer. Because of the way that round is made, there are misfires, so it's not reliable. It misses that letter R in our acronym at the very beginning. So that cancels out 22 ammunition. 380 has become popular with some of the ladies just because that is what the retailers have pushed. But ultimately, ladies, a 380 is just kind of a little short 9mm that has not as much power. You may as well go ahead and shoot 9mm. In addition to that, it's not as reliable, it's harder to find, and it's more expensive. If you can shoot 380, you can take a little bit more recoil and shoot 9mm. It becomes technique, right? So if you are struggling to shoot a 9mm round, it is about technique. It is about training. It is about practice. We can get you over that hump, but I do recommend that everyone carry 9mm or more in terms of your pistol caliber. I'm going to pause here just for a moment if there are any questions or comments before we continue moving forward. Anything that we've covered so far? All right. Well, we've talked about picking your firearm, which is going to be the central component, right, of your primary everyday carry system, but it's only the central component. There are other things that you want to consider. First and foremost, and I know I might cause some division here, but it is what it is. Your primary EDC system should always be worn on body or on person. Now, I am fully aware that there's a whole market out here for concealed carry purses and concealed carry backpacks and so forth and so on. I am not a fan. Not a fan at all for many, many reasons. One of them being liability, the other just being safety, and the fact that you want as much time on your side should you have to defend yourself as possible. Trying to retrieve a firearm from a bag and so forth, no matter how much you practice, is going to cost you more time than it would if that same tool were on your body. So when we talk about our primary EDC system, the firearm that you're going to reach for first, it needs to be on your body in an optimal state. That ensures or makes sure that it is immediately available to you. So again, it needs to be on your body. Now, if you have a backup firearm, a backup magazine, and you want to place that elsewhere, maybe off body in that concealed carry purse or in that handbag, that's up to you. But again, I highly recommend that first line of defense be on your body. Now, we have our firearm picked out, but we need to support it. The first line of support for your handgun is your holster. Your holster has to be selected appropriately. If you have a crappy holster, even the best of a firearm will do you absolutely no good. Pause for just a moment, pardon me. So holster selection is extremely, extremely important. Please do not cheap out on your holsters. And I'm going to talk here in just a moment on how to make sure that you select the right one. In addition to that holster, you need to dress around the gun. So your garments are going to have to support the holster, which supports the firearm. Listen, there are options out there we'll talk about here in just a moment, but you've got to dress around your firearm if you're going to carry one. That is just the name of the game, right? That's what we're signing up for if we're going to carry a gun. So it's very, very important. You also want to make sure with your primary EDC system, as we've mentioned, that you carry other things such as your identification, your cash. You might also choose to carry a multi-tool or a little pocket knife. You know, I'm from the South, and that's just something we were always taught. You don't go anywhere without a little pocket knife, right? So that is part of my everyday carry system. In my pocket, if I have a pocket or somewhere on my person or attached to my holster, I will always have a little tool or pocket knife, just because that is what I've been taught to do. And there have been many situations where I've needed such a tool to get out of, you know, things that maybe weren't emergencies, but certainly it's helped me in terms of convenience. So you want to think about that as well. So again, your primary EDC system are all the things that are going to keep you safe and comfortable and healthy on an everyday basis that you carry on your actual body. That's going to be very important. So now let's talk about the holster specifically, because I know this is a place or an area where a lot of people really do struggle. So when I pick out my holster, what do I need to consider? First and foremost is safety. My holster must be safe. So what constitutes a safe holster? Ultimately, the first thing you want to think about is your trigger. That trigger must be protected, because we all know what are the safety rules. Keep that finger off the trigger till you're ready to shoot. There's a reason for that safety rule. As long as nothing touches the trigger, the gun will not go boom. It's physics, it's fact, that's just the way that it works, right? So my first job when I'm picking out a holster is to make sure my trigger is protected. Here's one of my favorite everyday carry holsters. This one actually goes inside the waistband on pants. I don't need a belt for this particular clip. And again, I've got my cleared firearm here. My holster is here. So when my firearm is holstered, you can see, and I'll turn it on to this side, you can see my entire trigger guard is covered. There's no way, if this were loaded, I can tap on it, I can pull on it, I can poke at it. There's no way that I'm going to get to that trigger. So this is a safe holster in that regard. That is the first thing that you want to ensure, is that your trigger is covered and your trigger is protected. You also need to ensure that the firearm is secure. Now you'll notice it takes a little tug in order for me to remove my firearm from the holster. Then you can hear it kind of click in. Okay. In this case, this is what we call retention. I want retention so that when I'm moving around, look at that, my firearm is not falling out. If I bend over, if I have to fight, if I have to jump, my firearm is not going to fall out of my holster. So whatever holster you choose should also secure your firearm. You need to be confident that where you put it, it is going to stay until you, as the owner and operator, actually remove it. Very, very important. You also want to consider comfort. That holster needs to be comfortable but noticeable. You don't want to forget that it's there, but you also don't want it poking, at your flesh all day. That's going to be very uncomfortable, and it's going to discourage you from carrying every single day, which is ultimately the purpose. So make sure that it's comfortable. Also, it should be concealable. Concealed means that it is not visible to the public eye. When you get dressed and you put on that firearm and you look in the mirror, you should not be able to tell that you are carrying a firearm. When you do that successfully, you are carrying concealed. If someone can look at you and tell that you're carrying, then something is off in your system and you need to make some adjustments. Last but not least, that holster must allow you quick and easy access. Remember, I said that God forbid, if you ever have to defend your life or that of a loved one, it's going to be extremely quick. You are not going to have time to fiddle around and fight. You need to be able to get your hands on your firearm, draw, and get the first shot on target in less than a second. That's the reality. That's something we need to train up to. I should be able to get my gun in my hand and on target, first shot, in less than a second. That is our goal. So again, your holster and how it's designed needs to allow you fast and easy access. Therefore, you should consider where you're carrying. Some people carry inside the waistband, outside the waistband. Those are options. Another option that I like is right inside my thigh. Avoid things such as carrying in the small of your back. Right? That's not really smart, because chances are if you have to pull your gun, there's probably a fight involved at some point. So where are you going to end up? On your back. That's not a place that's easily and quickly accessible. So think about those things as well when you are shopping for your holster. Now, I do get a lot of questions about holsters, and I'm going to say this. For my particular carry gun, I have about 7 holsters that I rotate through based on what I'm wearing. So again, I mentioned you have to dress around the firearm. I don't wear jeans every day. I tend to like skirts and suits and things of that sort. I like to dress up. I do ministry. I travel. So I like to have something that is versatile. There's not one holster that's going to give me everything I need. So I rotate through about 7 of them for that one firearm. I'll show you a couple other options. So you've seen this one. This is a Kydex holster. This is probably the one that I use the most, but I use auxiliary systems to make this a little more versatile than it is out of the box, if you will. And I'll show you a few of those. Another one I like, a type that I like, is this hybrid holster. This one is by Crossbreed. And the reason I like these is because you'll see on this side, this is all leather. So it's nice and it's soft and it molds to my body. It's comfortable. It doesn't stick in me, doesn't jab my fluff or anything of that sort. And then on the outside, I have that Kydex, right? That hard plastic. So it's very, very comfortable, but also secure. My firearm clicks inside of it. I have my belt hoops here that I can use, and I can also trade these out for what we call ulti clips. Ulti clips work on things like sweatpants, skirts, anything that doesn't have a belt or a belt hook. You can adjust with this. So this is one of my favorites as well, if I'm going to wear it on my waist. I mentioned to you that I also sometimes will carry inside of my thigh. I have a holster made by the Well-Armed Woman that is basically Spanx, and it allows me to carry my firearm on the inside of my left thigh. So I have a very easy draw, very easy access in order to do that. Let's see, we got a chat question. Let me just pause here for a moment. Agreeing that to conceal that no one can see, absolutely, especially as a lady. Let's see. Says it could be a deterrent if someone can see your weapon. I do agree with that. Maybe that person would change their mind. So in terms of, I think the question is it sometimes a good thing for someone to see your firearm? I would say that depends. But if anyone does see your firearm, remember that there could be consequences to that. We live in a very politically charged society right now, and some people are very much against firearms. It can draw unnecessary attention, and it can draw some very divisive attention. So I personally do not like the idea of anyone ever knowing that I have a firearm. I also like to have the element of surprise on my side. If someone sees that I have a gun, they can strategize around that if they're trying to attack me. And so for me, concealed is always non-visible. If I want to use a deterrent, I'll use something else. You know, I'll use the vision of my pepper spray, or maybe an alarm, a personal alarm, something of that sort, screen, whatever I have to do. But I'd never want my firearm to be a deterrent. I don't want anyone to know about it until I actually have to use it. All right. So let's see. Someone said my window's a little small to see the holsters. How about we do this? Why don't I stop sharing for a moment? All right. So that way you can see, and I'll show these again. So this is my everyday carry holster here. And you can see it's all Kydex. This particular one is by the Well-Armed Woman. Dean Adams makes one that's very similar. I believe I have one of theirs as well, and I absolutely love it. This is the one, again, you can see on this side here, my entire trigger guard is covered. Okay. I've got good retention. This firearm is not going to fall out when I put it on my body at all. It's hard all the way around. And I really like this one, although sometimes this hard Kydex, when it's all the way around like this, can stick in your flesh. It can kind of stab you a little bit. So when that happens, I like to switch over to something like this, which is my crossbreed. So this is the one I was showing you with the leather on this side that molds to your body, and then the Kydex on this side. This one has the belt hooks on it at the moment, but I can switch these out for what we call ulti clips, and you can order those from pretty much any holster company. Those multi clips or ulti clips, excuse me, will help you to attach to sweatpants, yoga pants, a skirt without a belt, anything without belt hoops or without that belt line. It will allow you to attach to that, which is really nice. I do not have with me at the moment my Well-Armed Woman Spanx, but I love them. They allow me to carry on the inside of my left thigh, so a very quick and easy draw. Don't feel it. I love to wear that under skirts and suits where I have a skirt on, so those are really nice as well. Another thing, you all have heard me talk about this. I am a huge fan of belly bands if you have the right belly band. So this is one of my favorite. I have several of these, and unfortunately, Can Concealment, who is my favorite company for belly bands, I believe is going out of business. So this particular one, I have plenty of them, but I don't know that you can get any more of this same brand. What you can do though is go and find one that you like. I actually love this one. This one has, I don't know if you can see that, the hook and eye attachments as opposed to Velcro. And it has lots of pockets and lots of areas where I can carry a firearm, as well as a magazine or my cell phone. I can also carry my ID. So I use this a lot if I'm going running, if I'm going to the gym. It really is wonderful and concealable. The other thing I like about this, if I step back here, I can position this. I don't know if you can see me, but I can position this around my hips all the way up to right under my bust line. So whatever is comfortable to me at the moment, depending on what I'm wearing, that's where I would position the belly holster or the belly band holster. And it gives me just a lot of versatility and a lot of options depending on what I might be wearing for the day. In addition to this, because now it's getting hot, and you can see this is a little bit thick. Now it's getting hot. So I'll show you a couple other things that I really like. And these are both very low cost options. The first one is again by Crossbreed. This is the Crossbreed Liberty Band. And what this is just a Velcro belt. So this belt goes around your body like so. And then you basically Velcro your gun on as well. So there's a little ledge here. That little ledge acts like a belt, even though it's not a belt. So what I would do, let's see if I can get this on here. What I would do is attach the Velcro like so. Okay. Then I would take my existing holster, attach it on, and again, this firearm is clear. And then once I have it attached on, I stretch that Velcro and attach it on that side. So I've created a belly band, as you can see, with an existing holster. So this is a great option as well. It's very, very, very comfortable. And again, allows you to adjust the location to where you would like it to be. Another similar option, so this one is again the Liberty Band by Crossbreed Holsters. Low cost option, I believe it's around 30 bucks, which is beautiful. And here's another option. This is another one that's getting very popular. This one's called Comfort Concealment. It's the exact same principle. This becomes, if you will, your virtual belt. So whether you have on pants without belt hooks, a skirt, anything, very simple, the exact same thing. You simply put it around your waist or your hips or up under your bust line, wherever you want it to be. You attach it, and then you hang your existing holster right here. So it creates a belt for those moments when you don't have a belt. I do like this one sometimes low on my hips. There are other systems out there, the Filsta, I'm probably saying it wrong, Enigma holster. This does the exact same thing. So it allows you to kind of adjust up and down on your hip line wherever you desire. Now, one thing I will mention as well that you may or may not have noticed, on this holster, I have this little kickstand here. It's called a wing. Okay, this is something that you can also add on. What this does is when I put my holster on inside of my waistband, some of us, like myself, I've had children, I have a little fluff, right? So if I put on a regular holster without this kickstand, the gun tends to push out, especially when I bend over or sit down and I get that little bulge. This little wing here, what it does is it creates tension between my waistline and my skin, and it pushes the firearm back in. So it helps with concealability, and it keeps me from printing, or it keeps the outline from the firearm from showing. So on almost all of my holsters with any Kydex, I attach this little wing. Some companies have what's called a wedge, so it looks like a foam wedge, which does the same thing. So instead of the firearm doing this, when it's against your skin and your belly, if you will, pushing it forward, that forces it back into your skin or back into your belly so that it keeps it flat. So again, great options. All of these are available with pretty much any holster company, and those are some of the things that you want to consider when it comes to your holster. Thoughts, questions, or comments? Lots
Joy,
of
can you hold that? Can you hold that up again? I want to take a picture if you don't mind. Yes.
Mhm.
Yep. And what is it called again?
It's called a wing.
Wing. Okay.
Yep. And if you order, especially from any of the women's companies, they always have them. The gentleman companies tend to call them, they tend to have the foam instead. So you'll see a foam insert. It looks like a wedge. And some of them actually call it a foam wedge. It does the same thing, but it tends to be a little bulkier. These I find work better for us ladies, just because we have smaller frames in terms of our waist depth. Absolutely. Any other questions? The key here again is that the holster is very, very, very important. Now let's see, let me share a different screen. I want to share that one. Let's see, I want to share that screen. There we go. All right, so the holster again is very, very important. So you want to make sure that you keep that in mind, and also consider that you might need multiple holsters for your everyday carry, and that's okay. It's perfectly normal. So as I mentioned, the gun that I carry every day, I probably rotate through about 7 holsters. I sometimes carry other firearms. And so guess what? For each of those others, I might have 2 or 3. I have an entire drawer full of holsters. So if you are taking notes, I'm going to give you a few names of companies here very quickly that you can write down, and I'll type them in the chat as well. These are companies that, in my opinion, make great holsters, especially for ladies, So you saw me mention Crossbreed holsters. That's one of my favorites. The Well-Armed Woman. I'm going to mention Can Concealment, even though they are going out of business. I believe they are having some clearance sales at the moment, and they are amazing. If you can get your hands on some of their products, they are some of the best, and it breaks my heart that they are going out of business, but their products absolutely, absolutely amazing. Another one to consider, Dean Adams holsters, and also Eclipse holsters. These are all wonderful companies, especially for women. Now, there are some others that out there that are great. You know, I must say, I've got some other holsters when it comes to competition, taking tactical classes, things of that sort. But today we're talking about concealed carry. If you go with any of these 5 that I've listed, you will not go wrong. So again, Crossbreed, the Well-Armed Woman, Can Concealment, Dean Adams, and Eclipse holsters. Those are the ones that I've personally used, and they are all absolutely amazing. Certainly no regrets from my perspective. All right. Now let's push forward a little bit here, and then we're going to talk about your secondary EDC. So we've talked about the primary stuff, but let's talk now about the secondary stuff. So these are things that you need to have with you on a day-to-day basis, again, to keep safe and to stay healthy, that you may not need on your body, but you do want them in close proximity. So these are the things that you would keep in your purse or in a backpack or in a fanny pack, depending on, how you travel on a day-to-day basis. The items you want to consider, and this is going to be very, very personal, so I'm going to preface it by saying that, but you do want to consider, first and foremost, a secondary defense option. Everybody needs something between harsh words and a gun. For me, my defense option of choice just happens to be good old-fashioned pepper spray. That's just what I like. You'll notice as well that my keychain is simple. I don't have 5,000 things on my keychain. There's a reason for that, right? The more that I have to fumble with, the more issues I could have, in addition to the fact that it can mess up your ignition, especially if you have an older car. But that's a different topic. So you want to make sure that you have something as a backup. To be quite honest, I never want to have to shoot anybody. That is 1,000% my absolute last resort. If someone is even trying to mug me or trying to attack me, if there's any way that I feel I can stop that with pepper spray, that is going to be my choice. Whatever your secondary choice is, you need to have one. It needs to be an educated decision, and it needs to be included in your secondary EDC. Your keys should be included there. Maybe you need reading glasses. If you have an EpiPen, something of that sort, it needs to be there. A first aid kit, maybe a sewing kit, credit cards, anything that might have, information about family members or anything like that that you need to have quick access to. Maybe food or snacks, writing utensils, your cell phone, things like that are going to be included in your secondary EDC. So again, this is very personal, but I want to bring it up here because it's something we don't think about enough. You need to think about what goes in your purse and what needs to be there every day. Now, ladies, I know that some of us are fashionistas, right? I personally don't change my purse every day, but I get it. I know some people do. Your purse has to match your shoes. It has to match your makeup, has to match everything. I get it. If you are one of those people, I highly recommend that you at least have a wallet or some sort of wrist bag that you don't change out every single day. Because I guarantee you, when you need something, it will be missing. And when you say, oh, crap, it's in the purse that I wore Tuesday, that's too late, right? So if you are one of these ladies that's just got to have everything coordinated, I salute you, queen. But listen, if you're going to be safe, I highly recommend you get some sort of a wristlet or a wallet that you can transfer from one bag to another so that you keep those same things available. So again, think about that secondary list. Perfect it for your lifestyle and make sure that it is consistent. Because again, we're still talking about EDC. So these are things we're going to carry every single day. Third, our tertiary or extended EDC. So these are things that you always want to have available, even though they may not always be on your person or even in your close proximity. They are with you when you're traveling, especially ladies, when it comes to our vehicles. This is very, very important. In your vehicle, you need to think about, if I were stranded, especially if you are going on vacation or you are far away from home, if I were stranded, what would I need in order to get through a maximum of 72 hours? Maybe that's water. Maybe that's some canned meat. Maybe that is a first aid kit in your car. I happen to have a first aid and trauma kit in my car. I have heat blankets in my car. I have ponchos in my car, just in case I get stuck somewhere and it's snowing or I'm stuck on the highway. I was here in Raleigh, North Carolina years ago when we had a gridlock that lasted us a couple of days. We don't know what to do when it snows, and we proved it, right? I left work that day. Usually it takes about 40 minutes of commute from where my office was at the time to my home. There were people stranded on the road, the hotels all booked up. It was crazy. You want to be able to have things in your car that will keep you up to 72 hours, right? It's very, very important. So that first aid kit, heat blankets, things of that sort, think about that. Maybe some MREs for those of you who are veterans, or I'm married to a veteran, just something that will sustain you. Protein bars, bottled water, a couple of protein shakes. Doesn't have to be a lot, but something that will sustain you and your family should you break down in the middle of nowhere, just to give you those 72 hours. You also need what we call a get home bag, right? If something were to happen, what do I need in order to just get back home? Do I need a list of emergency numbers? Maybe. Do I need a small generator? Do I need something that will crank my car up for me, right? So if you don't have spark plugs, or at least one of these power banks that will help you to crank your car, that's going to be a problem. Do you have a spare tire? We want to think about these things, especially as women, because these are no longer the 70s and 80s, ladies. Right. I remember growing up, and my uncles and my cousins would teach me how to change my tire and change my oil, or check my oil, change the battery, things of that sort. And I remember some of the older ladies would say, you don't have to do that. A nice gentleman, because if they're taught correctly, they'll stop and they'll help you. Right. Well, this is 2023. And when gentlemen stop and want to help me, it makes me nervous, because there are crazy folks out here these days, right? So I never want to be in a position ever that I have to depend on someone else for my safe being. I'm going to make sure that I have everything I need in my vehicle. And worst case scenario, I'll call roadside assistance, but I'm going to have all the tools that I need already there, so that I'm not having to interact with a complete stranger. You've got to have your vehicle emergency tools on hand. Do you have a jack? What would you do if you had a flat tire and no one could get to you for 45 minutes? Because here's the thing, even if you have roadside assistance, it could easily be 2 hours before they get to you, even on a busy highway. Do you have what's needed? Do you have flashers? Do you have any type of flag that you can put in your window to signify that you need help? Do you have a first aid kit should something happen? What if someone hits you and they run? It happens all the time. Are you able to take care of yourself until someone can get to you, until you can find the cell phone that fell out of your purse upon impact? Can you take care of that cut that's on your hand, or that cut, a piece of glass that's in your neck? Can you do that to sustain yourself until someone else can help? These are the types of things that we really want to think about. Don't just get in your car and assume that your husband or a significant other took care of things. Do you have gas? Ladies, we should not be running out of gas on the side of the road. These are the types of things you want to think about. Maybe you're not driving, but you're flying, or you're getting on a train or a bus and you're going someplace. If you're going to be staying in a hotel, what do you need if there is a power outage? What can you put in your bag to make sure that you are sustained for 3 days, or to make sure that you have the information needed for you to get home, right? All of these things are things we should think about and plan for. And then once you plan for it, make it habit to keep it accessible at all times so that you can depend on it. Hopefully, you never need it, right? But if you have to depend on it, that is not the time to start wondering and thinking and trying to remember whether or not you have something in place. So this is how we create an EDC system that is effective, that helps us to live with peace of mind and helps us to stay safe and healthy. What are your questions? You all are going to be quiet on me this morning.
Hey, this is Sherry. I'll ask a question.
Sure.
Are there places that you can go to try certain kinds of holsters for your, and especially like the belly bands, to see if it's gonna, because it gets expensive and then you purchase them and then they go in a drawer, right? Because you don't like it. So I just didn't know if there were places you could do that.
That is a great question. Unfortunately, usually not. There are some gun clubs like ours that will occasionally do a holster swap. We've done 2. And probably should do another one coming here soon when the seasons change. But that's going to be your best bet, is to work with maybe friends, maybe if you're, a gun club, and we'll try to schedule one. That's going to be your best option. Most of the time, stores won't allow you to do that because they have to open the packages and they can touch your body and things of that sort. So definitely get with some friends, and maybe even if we don't have a holster swap at the meeting, anybody can bring holsters to meetings and try a few. I tend to try to bring, work through them and then bring the ones I don't use so somebody else can use them, because other people like things that maybe I don't like, and vice versa. So you're right. It gets expensive, but it's hard to find those opportunities to share unless you just do so with friends.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Great question. Any others? I would like for all of you to go ahead and screenshot, take a picture, whatever you need to do with your cell phone. These are some references, credits, and resources. So these are all resources that I have used to build my everyday carry systems. They are amazing resources. The first is the Concealed Carry class, the ABCs of Self-Defense Tools and Tactics by Tom Givens. You need this in your library. This is a great book to read and to understand not only why we carry and how to carry, but also this just gives you some insight into what crime actually looks like. What those violent encounters are actually like. What are we actually preparing for? Of course, we hope none of us ever have to experience it, but the fact of the matter is that there are evil people in the world. And so this is a great resource that not only explains what to do, but then gives you the statistics and the history and the background to understand why we do it the way that we do it. Then, of course, many of you are familiar with the Concealed Carry and Home Defense Fundamentals course book by the USCCA, another amazing resource that covers all things having to do with home defense and self-defense. It touches even on shotguns and rifles and those places in our entire defense system. So if you don't have a copy of that, please do get one. You can get those through InHER as well. We're happy to provide those to you, of course, at cost, but we always have a stock of them because we do believe in that resource. So please get your hands on that if you don't have a copy. And then lastly, I would love for you to take a moment after this call to go to this website. It's called The 3 Tiers of Everyday Carry. It's a great blog article that was written, and it talks about those 3 tiers of EDC that we've touched on. We've only touched the surface, but if you'd like to dig a little bit more, again, into the why and the considerations that go behind it, this is a great article, maybe a 15-minute read at most, that will really give you some in-depth understanding and knowledge of what that looks like. So go ahead and take a photo of that if you haven't already, or write down those resources. They're going to be helpful to you and all a benefit to your library for sure, if you read them, of course. All right, and with that, ladies, thank you so much for your time. I do hope this was helpful. For those of you on the line who are interested in joining InHER, if you just scan that QR code, we'll take care of you, and that code will take you right to the link where you can learn more and sign up to become members. For those of you who are already members, of course, we appreciate having you as a part of the InHER family. We appreciate all of you taking time on a Saturday morning to join this webinar. I certainly hope you learned something and wish you a safe, beautiful, wonderful, and blessed weekend. You all take care, and we'll talk very soon. Thank you so much for joining.